Day 55, and today was one of those days when I was really wondering whether I can skip a day of making a video, because I was just in a very, very vegetative state. I'm lucky to have a cute little terrace where I was actually lying around and lounging around outside with a book. So I haven't spoken about this much yet, but I'm preparing for a trip to Egypt, end of September, beginning of October, with a woman who, the leader is Heather Ainsworth, whom I have found through YouTube years ago. She's an evolutionary astrologer, and a psychiatrist, and a writer, and a YouTuber, an incredible person. And so she has been organizing these trips to Egypt, to sacred sites. I'm going to go for 2 weeks. There will be a group of women, and I'm really, really excited about it. So part of the reading and the information that she advised us to start getting acquainted with is, has been blowing my mind. I've been watching some stuff on YouTube, and today I started reading one of the books. And what I'm gaining access to as information is, such a clear understanding that our idea of reality that's been conditioned, passed down to us through, education and the stories that we hear on social media or in news sources at large, really doesn't give us a full idea of reality. Our reality is much more complex, and even here, we're talking about our patrimony, our kind of inheritance, cultural inheritance, and even there, from what I am starting to understand, the information that is passed down to us from archaeologists is not the truth always, or not the full truth, not the full information. There is still so much more about our past, and so the meaning of this particular life period and lifetime that we are experiencing is just a fragment of a much bigger and more important sequence of events. So what is interesting is that as I'm reading this book, and I just couldn't put it down, it's called Initiation, written by a woman who has memories from previous lives, and it's something that I haven't felt very comfortable talking about, but in these last several years, in these last 10 years that I've been on my journey of awakening, I started remembering certain things from my childhood, and I also started remembering certain things from life that doesn't seem to be this particular lifetime. And I think this is the first time I'm speaking about this publicly, and even in my own family, I haven't been really speaking much to it because, I come from a world where this kind of information is not well received, it's not really taken seriously. And I myself, actually, it's taken me a while to sort of go into this revelation, because I myself have been struggling with believing some of the manifestations that I've experienced. So what's interesting is that I have experiential knowledge now of some of the things that are miraculous, and yet my logical mind is interfering. So what's been happening in the last several years is that I've been I've been documenting in my journal some of the things that felt extremely miraculous as they were happening. And yet what is really, really interesting, like in that moment, I understand that it's a miracle. And yet several weeks later, I again find myself doubting and thinking that it's a coincidence. And I'm the first to say there are no coincidences. And when I work with my clients, I am able to channel that information to them, and I'm the first to say there are no coincidences. And yet, I find myself, even after all these years, still in this kind of inner confrontation between the actual fact, observable evidence of things that seem miraculous, that are miraculous, and yet my own logical, rational mind then fights that information and discounting what has happened as a coincidence. So because the theme of my videos are making invisible visible, I thought that because the whole day I just couldn't put down this book that I was reading, and it really sort of reawakened me to my own experience in this realm. I decided to speak about this on this video as well. And it just seems important to talk about it, because a lot of my work is about deconditioning about the way we view our own lives, the way we view relationships, the way we view nature, the way we view science, the way we view history, the way we view, motherhood and parenting. And I think that it's just, there are so many layers of that conditioning that we must pierce through and start thinking about the world in a much greater capacity. Because even what I'm starting to realize about my own daughters, for example, now, is that each one of them, and this I had already noticed, for example, 10 years ago, I realized that each one of my daughters represents a side of me. One of them is a perfectionist, perfect student, perfect everything, and then also the struggles that come with it. She definitely represents the side of me that I was until I started unraveling. Another of my daughters is an incredibly free-spirited, never felt that I was an authority figure, always felt my equal, and couldn't understand why I was imposing all these rules and why there was this hierarchy between us, and she kept on rebelling against it. And today I understand she is the other extreme. She's kind of the other spectrum between my perfectionist self and where I'm going, that extreme freedom that I haven't gotten to yet. It's incredible for me to observe and learn from her. And for many years before I awoke or went through my awakening, I was very much against her because she represented a side of me that I haven't owned yet. And then, the third of my daughters represents this more of a traumatized, a very, very extremely sensitive, like a naked nerve, which also was me as a child, except I suppressed a lot of that in my through my conditioning, and she is a constant reminder of that part of me. And the introvert, and kind of it's impossible to explain in words, and I don't really want to get into it today, but I just wanted to say that I'm more and more realizing that everything that my life has been, including the children that came to me, has been part of this voyage everything makes sense. Everything is not haphazard. Everything is with a specific mission and specific reason and specific, it's a kind of a weaving that I often talk about, in my group Safe to Be Me. It's a kind of weaving. My life is a weaving of all these different events that are not haphazard. There is a meaning, there is a sequence, there is a kind of cohesive storyline that my life represents. And for example, one of the things that to prove that point as an evidence is that when I started meditating in 2016, it was June 2016, among the first big revelations was I was listening to a recorded meditation where there was a phrase, "I am safe," that unleashed crazy tears for me that lasted for days. And by interesting sequence of events, today I run a group that's called Safe to Be Me. So just there are no haphazard or weird or disjointed parts of my life. Everything has a meaning. Every person played a role that I encountered, every book, every message that I received. And the children who came to me, and it's just an incredibly miraculous occurrence. And yeah, so I spent my whole day sort of immersed in that kind of state, and it seemed appropriate to make a video also with that kind of information. And perhaps I will be speaking more about it. And actually this week in my Safe to Be Me group, we're also going into miracles and giving examples of miracles in our lives, and really understanding that we're not alone, we're not lonely, we're not isolated, that we belong to something much greater than just our geographic communities or our biological families. And that is why I feel our deconditioning from the conditioning we've inherited from our families is so important, because it frees us and allows us to belong to something much greater and much bigger than our biological families or our geographic community. And my life and everything that I've been going through in the last several years is a kind of a testament to that, because when I no longer was afraid to break away from my biological family and geographical community, I am now part of a community that is, my tribe is non-local. We are all over the world and we gravitate to each other. And it has opened up my horizons, and it has freed me in so many ways. So yeah, this is something that I really wanted to share lately, and I'm glad that I have an opportunity. Our life is so much bigger than the news we listen to and the scientific information that is presented to us. There is just so much more to our life, and the more I filter the official dogma, and the more I allow myself to dive in and do my own research about things that are now proven through my own life experience, the more I realize how magical this life is and how incredible our experience here is, and how much greater it is than the experience in which we suffer, because we've been reduced to just this physical observable reality as the only reality that exists. So much of our suffering is caused by that disconnect from the larger reality, because we are so much more. And because our wings have been clipped by this only material reality, a lot of our suffering is from that disconnect from who we actually are and all the gifts that are available to us in this other realm. So just wanted to bring this in. I know it's not something that I speak about frequently, although in my courses I speak about that more. So today felt appropriate to start talking about this side of my vision of the world and where I suspect my work will be taking me more and more, and the people who gravitate toward me. All right, everyone, see you tomorrow.